Hey everybody, and welcome back to Tech Bites presented by HiTechU. My name's Andrew, and on today's episode we're going to be exploring a topic that's really important to aspiring future computer scientists and software engineers, an episode I like to call GitHub, GitLab, what? So, you might have tuned into this episode because you wanted to find out the differences between GitHub and GitLab. Well, I think it's more important to start with the similarities between the two, which is actually pretty obvious from the names, and that's Git. Git's what's known as a distributed version control system, which is basically a system that allows for you to track changes that you've made to files or a series of files over a period of time so you can recall them later on. You might not have heard about GitHub or GitLab, but you probably have actually used a sort of version control system that exists out there in Google Docs. If you've ever gone and looked at changes that have been made to a document, or if you've gone to restore something when you've made a mistake, that system that Docs is using is a version control system so that you can see those changes and recall them later on. And that's, at a fundamental level, really what Git is all about. Now you might be saying to yourself, what's the difference between just saving your own versions of different files? I think we've all been guilty of saving files as final copy, final copy, final copy B, which is okay when it's something that you're working on by yourself or it's just a single file. But as soon as you start to deal with more files or a more complex system, or you're pulling in other people into that collaboration process, it actually makes things really, really difficult to keep track and be able to restore things if you're not using something like a distributed version control system. Back to GitHub and GitLab, those are examples of web-based Git repository hosting services, which are services that allow for you to host projects that use Git as their version control system, alongside a number of other really great features for software development and other things as well. But those are some features that you're going to have to explore on your own outside of this video with some of the resources that we provide you a little bit later on. Git actually started its life back in 2005 as a project of the Linux community. That's the same Linux that you might have heard of or that you might have used as an operating system on your computer. It was actually prompted because the team that was developing Linux lost access to a free proprietary software called BitKeeper that they were using, and instead of finding another system to use, they decided to create one of their own to track changes within the file structure. And that's how Git was born. GitHub's history started a few years later in 2007 when a group of developers teamed up to form a company called Logical Awesome LLC, which would eventually become GitHub. Within 2 years, they'd gained 100,000 users on their platform, and by 2018, they had more than 30 million developers using their platform, and they sold to Microsoft for $7.5 billion that same year. GitLab is a slightly newer kid on the block, founded in 2011 by a team of Ukrainian developers. Originally released as a free and open source software with an MIT license, 2018 was also a really big year for them, landing $100 million in Series D funding and becoming the first Ukrainian unicorn company valued at over $1 billion. While GitHub and GitLab may be some of the biggest players when it comes to web-based Git repository hosting services, they're not the only players in town. In fact, there's a lot of other really, really great tools and platforms that are out there that can do the same thing. There's platforms like Bitbucket by the Atlassian team, who has also developed some other really great tools for software development. You can read a little bit more about it in the description below. There's also tools like SourceForge, which has had a little bit of a difficult time in recent years, somewhat due to situations like those outlined in the article here, which you can read more about below. And then there's some platforms like Gogs, or a fork of Gogs called Gitia, which are self-hosted Git repository hosting services that you can actually build up on your own and deploy if you have some stuff that you'd like to rather not host on a bigger service like GitHub or GitLab. So this is Octocat. Octocat is the GitHub mascot. Octocat was developed by the same person who developed this logo, which you've probably seen, Simon Oxley, who's a freelance graphic designer who developed the Twitter logo along with the GitHub mascot Octocat. in addition to hosting Git repositories, Bitbucket, that alternative Git repository hosting service I just mentioned, also hosts Mercurial projects, which is another distributed version control system. Now, that system, while it's maybe not as common as Git, is actually used by some pretty big companies, including Mozilla, which is the team behind Firefox. So we've spent a lot of time in this episode talking about what Git is, some fun facts and some history, but we haven't actually told you how to use Git in your projects. What's great is last season we had a really great TechBite episode on getting Git, which was more of a technical overview of how to use it. If you want to check out that video, check out the link in our description below, or you can click the link above, which will bring you directly to the video. In this episode, though, I want to carry on with our idea of project ideas, but this time it's going to be some ideas of how you can learn Git at home on your own. The first resource that you'll really want to check out is GitHub Learning Lab, which is a way of learning how to use Git by using Git. You can check it out at the link in the description below, but I can say from personal experience, it's a really great way to learn how to use GitHub and how to get used to some of the Git syntax that you'll need to use in order to use it effectively. The next resource that you may want to check out, if you're looking for something a little bit more platform agnostic, is this Free Code Camp series on using Git. Free Code Camp is a really, really great organization that has tons of awesome tutorials on how to do web development and much, much more. So definitely check out the Git tutorials, but also some of the other really good content on Free Code Camp. Finally, if you're a student or teacher in BC who's looking to go a little bit deeper and try out some of these platforms, in particular Gitea and Gogs, and maybe even an older version of GitLab, you might want to check out the OpenEd BC Sandstorm platform, which actually gives you the ability to really easily spin up your own instance of one of those platforms to use within your educational environment and classroom setting. So as you may or may not know, TechBites are presented by HiTechU, which is an initiative based in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Victoria in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. And so with that in mind, I wanted to add a segment to end off every show, which I'm calling At UVic. In this segment, I'm hoping to highlight some of the really cool research that's going on here at the University of Victoria in the Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science related to what we're talking about on TechBites in any episode. For this week, I've got a really great researcher to highlight who's also been a mentor for HiTechU, Dr. Daniela Damian. In addition to her amazing work as a mentor with HiTechU, Dr. Damian is an accomplished researcher. She is a professor in the Department of Computer Science and the Software Engineering program here at the University of Victoria, and through that work she does a lot of research related to GitHub. In fact, she's got a ton of really great papers that are published right now on GitHub that you might want to check out. In the link below, I've got a link to Dr. Damian's research on ResearchGate, and you can definitely check out some really great articles that she's been involved in and published in relation to GitHub and how useful it is in the world of software engineering and development. And with that, we've reached the end of another episode of TechBites presented by HiTechU, filmed here at the beautiful University of Victoria in the Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to subscribe at the link in the description below. Be sure to check out our website, which will be linked below, but you can also find at this address. And if you want to learn more about what's going on here in the University of Victoria Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science, you can also visit us here or check out the link down below. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time here on TechBites, presented by HiTechU. Bye.